It's the Matt Sager Podcast, Friday, November 2nd. I'm back to finish what I started yesterday. It's part 2 of... Gosh, I don't know why I can't remember. What were we doing yesterday on the Matt Sager Podcast? Vincent D'Onofrio, can you help me out? What is our mission statement tonight?
Whatever this is.
No, it's a lot more specific than that, Vince. Come on. Give me something I can work with.
This D'Onofrio has had enough Frio.
Okay, I got it. We're doing Daredevil Season 3, Episode 2, Part 2. At the request of many of my listeners, I'm recapping Daredevil Season 3. It's interesting, as the requests for me to recap Daredevil have been flooding in, the actual viewership of the show on Netflix has plummeted. It's down 60% from Season 2, which had been holding sort of steady with Season 1. But yeah, the show is giving us diminishing returns season by season. Even as Netflix is canceling Marvel shows all over the place. They took out both Luke Cage and Iron Fist in one fell swoop about a week ago. Jessica Jones's fate is, I believe she's been renewed for a 3rd season. Defenders are almost certainly never going to return. And my guess is that this is the last season of Daredevil. So I'm happy to go through it with you. I honestly think it's a very, very good show. I would say that the episode we're recapping, Episode 2 of Season 3, titled Please, is not an especially strong episode. And this is not the strongest season. This is probably... Sorry, it is the weakest season. It's unfortunate that it would come out during my podcast at a time I'm recapping it. I would love to have had the opportunity to recap that first season, talking about that hallway fight and the brutality of it all. But we take what life gives us. We all need a purpose in this world. Something that this episode, Please, really revolves around. That concept of what it's like to be directionless and how desperate a man becomes when he loses his sense of purpose. In the case of Daredevil, he's now extra handicapped, deaf in one ear, and unable to be a superhero. And he is adrift, although he's expressing that adriftness by just being a petulant little man-baby. In the case of Special Agent Nadeem, assigned to Wilson Fisk, he's barely able to perform his duties as an FBI agent because he's so deep in a credit hole that the federal government is cautious of him. They consider him to be compromised. Yet despite this, they gave him a purpose, one in which he is extra vulnerable. He is in charge of Wilson Fisk's case, and in his desperation to hold on to this meaning in life, this mission he has, a chance to get out of debtor's prison, virtual though it may be, only harming his career, social life, family life, etc. He's desperate to keep Fisk alive so he can keep this gig going, and in fact, right after Fisk first started giving information to Nadeem, he ratted out the Albanian mob and was subsequently shanked in the weight room. He goes to Agent Nadeem and says he fears for his life, which goes right to Nadeem's fear of losing this intelligence asset and thereby losing any sense of importance he's had. So he pitches this insane idea to his bosses at the FBI and at the Justice Department, saying, listen, Wilson Fisk is saving lives, helping us make the city a safer place. Look at this giant bust we made against the Albanian mob already, in which we finally nabbed the notorious Mother Teresa, who happens to be a giant bearded Slavic man. And so he's since been shanked, and we got to keep him alive so we can keep this intel flowing. So we've got this white-collar criminal behind bars. We seized his mansion. The only way we can keep Fisk safe is if we get this cockamamie scheme going, one that was pitched to Nadeem by Fisk, but that Nadeem amazingly fell for. This does not bode well for either Nadeem or the FBI or Daredevil, frankly, because we're only into Episode 2, and Fisk is already pulling everyone's strings. He's planted this idea in Nadeem's head. Nadeem subsequently passes the idea along to his bosses at the FBI and at the Justice Department. And after a bitter argument back and forth, eventually he's convinced them all of this ridiculous notion that Fisk can't handle life behind bars and is valuable enough that he needs to be protected. Again, in this ridiculous mansion, fit for a crime kingpin. Meanwhile, all the people Daredevil left behind, the friends he's hiding from, Foggy and Karen, they're pretty directionless too. Karen at least has the mission, the certainty that Matt is alive, and she's chasing down any lead that will help her come to that conclusion. Foggy, why is he adrift? Well, without Matt, he's just a high-paid lawyer, which is actually a pretty nice life. But Foggy comes from working-class roots. He's the son of a deli owner, which I believe we learn for the first time in this episode, as he has his big homecoming, walks into a Hell's Kitchen. By the way, the actual Hell's Kitchen here in New York is absurdly Tony, well-to-do. The Hell's Kitchen that is portrayed in Daredevil was born of the Daredevil stories mostly told by Frank Miller in the 70s and 80s. And at that time, Hell's Kitchen really was a scary place where you would need a crime-fighting vigilante who was willing to bend the rules, break into Josie's bar, and break some heads. Now Hell's Kitchen, it's like $8,000 a month for a studio there. Like Wilson Fisk would have trouble affording rent there. But again, this is a superhero show. We're suspending a certain amount of disbelief. So Foggy goes to the deli in Hell's Kitchen where his family's all gathered. His parents are getting up there. You know, Foggy himself is a nearly middle-aged man, and his poor old pop is slinging hash. Whatever hash is. I guess it's corned beef? His dad is slinging corned beef hash at a deli in Hell's Kitchen, which is a big problem, which is why Foggy's mom gathered the family together and called in Foggy, saying, listen, I know being a lawyer, most parents would be pretty proud, but we want you to come run the deli. It's a fascinating guilt trip, one that Foggy himself is all too ready to embrace. He's really down in the dumps about something. I don't know if this is just the guilt of someone who didn't expect to succeed and did. It may be more psychological fallout from the fact that, as far as Foggy knows, Matt's dead. But whatever the reason, he takes this invitation to come and be guilt-tripped into taking over the deli. The family deli, as if they couldn't just close it and go retire. That responsibility is being pitched to Foggy, who's very seriously considering it at this point. He's in an existential despair.
Brother needs to be on a beach, not slinging meat in Hell's Kitchen. Whew, 40 years is enough already. I know, you got yourself a life, a good life. But maybe it's time you came home.
I'm right here when you need me.
Your brother loves this place, but Theo can't do it alone. Come help. Put those brains to work for your family. Not every uptown shithead that comes into your office.
They're not all shitheads, Mom.
I'm not telling you what to do. You're a grown man. Just think about it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I will. I promise.
Good. I love you, kid.
Do you really need brains to sling meat in Hell's Kitchen? I'm just curious, because I know lots of people who sling meat, and every one of them is smart, charming, witty, the rest. But is that really a job requirement for, quote, slinging meat? Just curious. Like when you're interviewed to be a meat slicer at a deli. Are there essay questions? Are there logical puzzles? My guess is no. That a law school degree, for instance, would not be required to sling meat in Hell's Kitchen. But Foggy needs a mission. He does not believe Matt is ever going to come back. And with Matt, much of the heroism behind Nelson and Murdock, attorneys at law, is gone. Matt was, in addition to being a badass vigilante, that same sense of justice powered him by day. And I believe that Foggy really leaned on that and felt that together the two of them were really making a difference. Maybe on his own, he's just a corporate lawyer and his soul is not fulfilled. It does not seem, either to me or clearly to Foggy by the way he responded to his mom, that void would be filled by slinging meat. But family responsibility is no small thing, and he's taking that very seriously. He's really considering this. Matt, meanwhile, has a purpose. You know, he'd foiled a kidnapping/potential robbery of this real estate baron and his daughter, but what he didn't do was get the perps. The perps kicked his ass and left him bleeding out in an alley, which enraged him so much that before the cops came and the perps fled, Matt actually threw them a pipe and just sat there, waiting and hoping for them to beat him to death, which they did not, which I believe they will now regret, because Matt has just enough willpower to track these guys down and bring them to justice at last. The kidnappers' MO was that they'd had this laundry van. Clearly they're fans of Breaking Bad because their criminal enterprise is being hidden in a laundromat. An excellent, tried and true way to hide a criminal enterprise. Just ask Gustavo Fring. But the thing is, when Matt tried to catch them and failed, he caught a whiff of the truck. It had this sort of herbal smell. So unlike most New York laundromats, which smell of bleach and formaldehyde and God knows what, this one apparently smelled like pine-scented goodness, which is lovely if you're a customer. But if you're a criminal working there and Daredevil's after you with his super smell, that's a problem. He's tracked down the laundromat, goes in to sniff it out and just be sure that he's in the right place where the bad guys are.
Hey, you want service? You gotta get in line, man. Oh. Come on. You got a ticket? You just pick it up?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, actually, I just ran in because your clothes smell so good. See, I got this real sensitive nose.
Yeah, we use a totally organic process, latest stuff.
Oh, cool. You got a flyer?
Not in Braille.
I got Seeing Friends.
Here, have a coupon.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Glad I found you. It makes my day.
All right.
Oh, yeah. His day is made, all right. He goes out around the back, climbs downstairs to the warehouse, storage, etc., and sees the guys he's been looking for. The guys who tried to kidnap Rostam Kazemi and possibly his daughter Nita, who was there with him. And they beat the hell out of Rostam. He's in a coma now. Daredevil responds in kind. He does unto others, clearly not in the way that Father Lantham taught him as an orphan at the Catholic Church. He does unto others by beating the holy hell out of them, zip-tying them to a chain-link fence that's down there in the basement, and leaves, after first calling the cops to let them know, ooh, gosh, I'm just some guy. I'll be long gone by the time you're here, but I heard some noises. You might want to come check this out.
Yeah, I'd like to report an assault. I didn't see what happened, but there are a lot of guns here. Maybe some kind of robbery.
People are going to have to stop using laundromats as criminal fronts. It's going to become cliche, it's going to give laundromats a bad name, and it's just going to be way too easy to get caught. Anytime there's a meth dealer, or muggers, or kidnappers, or Albanian mobsters, and the cops don't know where to find them, any Fed who's well-versed in television is just going to start perusing laundromats and make a lot of innocent launderers' life's hell. I'm just saying. Maybe a deli next time? That would be something unique. Oh, and speaking of delis. So Foggy is in the deli with his family, being sort of guilt-tripped into coming in and taking over the business for the family, letting his dad go retire, because his brother's too dumb to run it alone. He speaks to his brother, and his brother goes, listen, you don't want this life. You're a lawyer. I'm an idiot who slings meat. And also, by the way, as great as you are at law, that's how good I am at meat. You would be terrible here. He gives him an out. How much of this is just brotherly love? And also, by the way, we're in the 3rd season, episode 2. And by the way, Foggy has a brother. Just, apropos of nothing. Like I said, a lot of holes in this episode. The season itself is built on somewhat shaky ground, but this episode in particular is, But having said that, Foggy's getting ready to wrap up his visit. He's talked with his brother, his pop, the nieces and nephews, and of course, as you heard, his mom, when he gets a visitor. You might recall in the last episode of this podcast, in which I recounted part 1 of Daredevil Season 3, Episode 2, Karen had interviewed Nita Kazemi, who said that someone in a black mask had saved both her and her father in that alley. And that leaves Karen convinced that, it's got to be Matt. Which makes sense because in describing this vigilante to Karen, the only thing that separates this masked man, this mystery man, apart from Matt Murdock, Daredevil, is that he was wearing black. And yes, sure, Matt Murdock is blind, but he's a fairly brilliant man. He's been able to manage a life both as an attorney and as a vigilante. He's got to know that just changing the color of your suit does not tell the world, that couldn't possibly be that guy. Especially since his particular costume includes a little bandana that wraps around his eyes, all but advertising, hey, I'm that blind guy you all thought was dead. Karen is on to him, and so she interrupts Foggy's family reunion to tell him the news.
I think Matt's alive.
So the guy in the mask, he wasn't in a, devil suit?
No, but he was wearing a black mask, Foggy.
So it could be anybody.
It could also not be anybody.
Hell's Kitchen is ground zero for vigilantes these days. Believe me, I want it to be Matt too, but he's gone.
No.
We need to get past that.
There's no proof of that. Look, and until there is...
You know how I know he's gone? Because if it was Matt, if he was really still alive, he would have reached out to us.
You know how I know that you don't really believe that? You keep saying gone instead of dead. Now, don't you want to take a minute and just be absolutely sure that that's not your best friend out there somewhere?
I wish it was my best friend, but it's not. He's dead.
Oof. Foggy being brutal. All that animosity that his family's been unloading on him and that he's been suffering with a smile, he just laid it out on Karen, saying, nope, Matt's dead, get out of my face, I'm talking about deli meats here. Can't you see I'm busy? But of course, Matt is very much alive and well and rejuvenated after finally catching these bad guys, beating the hell out of him, leaving him chained up and alerting the police to their presence. Now he drops in and pays a visit to Nita Kazemi, who's in the hospital watching over her father, Rostam. When they were attacked and he was beaten into a coma and nearly kidnapped, they were apparently reconciling after a decades-long alienation, because he was this wealthy, sort of pop culture figure real estate magnate. And as such, her childhood had been dogged by TMZ, paparazzi and stuff, and somehow that's his fault. Who knows? We don't really find out anything about them until after the fact, when Karen interviews Nita in the hospital waiting room. But Matt has finally brought the attackers to justice. Now he goes in to check on the patient and touch base with the daughter.
You...
Your father. He's in a coma.
He's alive. Why did you help us?
The men who did this are in police custody for another crime. You head down to the 15th precinct right now. You can identify them.
Wait, you caught them?
You should go.
Thank God for you.
He didn't help you. I did.
See, when I described this as a weak episode, that line is a big part of why I said that. I know it's a superhero show. It's supposed to be a little corny at times. And yes, Matt is in his brooding stage of recovery. But that is a hokey line. A truly depressed person doesn't usually go that corny in my experience, but my experience does not encompass blind superheroes or any superheroes. So let Matt say what he wants. What matters is that Nita is safe, Rostam will hopefully recover, Matt is alive and behaving like a child, and the bad guys. This is very important. To Matt's credit, the bad guys have been apprehended now, and she can go identify them, bring them to justice, and presumably Rostam will wake up and be safe from whoever these dry cleaning criminals are. Meanwhile, Nadim is transferring Fisk to this new gorgeous mansion he selected for him. They're in an armed transport, and Nadim is really enjoying the power he thinks he has over Fisk right now. So he gives him this speech about, listen, convict, you eat when I say you eat, shit when I say you shit. When I say wake up, it's the morning. When I say good night, you go to sleep. When I say brush your teeth, well, I don't even care about your dental hygiene. The point is, we own you. Do you understand? And D'Onofrio, thank God for him. He really plays up Fisk's hokiest, most charismatic, most devious, deceitful side as he tells the truth about his love for Vanessa, going to ridiculous heights of corniness and hiding some other stuff that may be on his agenda. Because really what matters is that he's doing all of this for love.
I've spent much of my life alone.
And for many years, I pretended that this was the source of my strength.
I told myself I had free will. And in that time, I achieved a great deal. But I was not fulfilled. I was longing for a connection that I could imagine, but I could not achieve. Searching and not finding. Until Vanessa. Until I discovered love. I thought I would explode with the sense of power and freedom that she brought me. That the world lay at my feet.
Now, you probably think, wow, that's pretty corny, that's pretty hokey. That is rather florid speech, Mr. Fisk. You are a mass murderer. You're someone who has on multiple occasions tried to destroy this city, murder any innocents who dare stand in your way. That's to say nothing of the others who you've bullied into silence and submission and obedience and whom you've driven from their homes with force, threats, whatever it takes. But he's just getting warmed up. Remember, he's in love, and love gets you off everything. Hey, Hitler loved Eva Braun. Why were we so hard on him? It's amazing, but he leans so heavily into it, gets so pseudo-poetic, that Nadim is doing what we're all doing at home. He's staring at Fisk enraptured, hypnotized, as Fisk goes on.
But then that passed, when I discovered the great lie at the heart of love. That what I took for true freedom was precisely the reverse. You can build a prison of stone and steel, but you merely present the prisoner with a challenge. Any truly determined man will find a way out. But love is the perfect prison. Inescapable. So you see, Agent Nadim, I am always in prison, wherever I go. And if these things help me protect Vanessa, then they are nothing to me. I will do whatever I must.
Those things he's referring to are his handcuffs and chains that they've got him in. But you could argue that a man in love is always in the perfect prison. You could also argue that Fisk has already engineered his escape. He went down on 5 RICO counts, and something like 4 months later, he is being taken by armed transport in a motorcade to a mansion. But sure, he's always in prison. Now, having said that, he wraps up his speech. Nadim looks like he's ready to leave his wife and kids for Fisk. And that's the power of Vincent D'Onofrio's delivery. When suddenly, boom, an RPG or bazooka or something massive hits the van, turns it over, kills a ton of the officers, knocks the rest out, and leaves Fisk dangling there, upside down, screaming and calling out for help, going, Nadim, Nadim, wake up! Oh shit, it's the Albanians and I'm still in my chains! And so the motorcade comes to a complete stop. The officers spill out of their vehicles, guns raised and loaded and ready to fire, because the streets are full of Albanian mobsters, packing RPGs, handheld grenades, submachine guns, full machine guns. This is basically an Albanian army on the streets of New York City against the FBI and cops. And guess which side is winning? It's not the good guys. This is a bloodbath. A lot of good people die defending Wilson Fisk on his way out of jail and into his palace. They're gunned down, they're butchered. You basically watch a contingent of police and FBI officers just be gunned down in cold blood in defense of Wilson Fisk, who they're taking to his dream mansion in the sky. Among the only ones left are an unconscious Agent Nadim, a terrified Wilson Fisk, who is beginning to get that his brilliant scheme is about to collapse in on him. Because they take every armament they have trying to get through these bulletproof windows, and they come really close. Fisk is freaking out. He's chained, he's upside down, he's helpless. And this isn't one Albanian who Fisk can use his superhuman strength to pick up and toss him around like the Hulk and Loki in that scene in the Avengers. This is an army of raging Albanians packing heavy armaments, military-grade stuff, capable of taking out an armed federal transport. What chance does one man, even a giant of such strength, will, and, let's face it, girth, as Wilson Fisk, what chance does he stand against all these angry, armed Albanians? One of them has a chainsaw and starts hacking away at the side of the van, and he's going to get through when suddenly he's taken out. And then one by one, all these Albanians, bang, down with one shot, bang, down with another shot. One single shot for each Albanian takes every one of them out. And suddenly, just like that, Fisk is saved by an agent we will come to know later, who I think it's fair to say will become very important to Daredevil Season 3. Who any hardcore Daredevil fans, any fan who is familiar with the Frank Miller stories I referenced earlier, is gonna know who this guy is. A man who could take down basically an army on the street with minimal effort and with every shot being a kill shot. I wonder who that might turn out to be. I will say at this time that the agent's name is Poindexter. The rest I will leave up to you. So, Fisk is alive. Nadim's career is intact, although many, many lives have been lost in this fool's errand of getting Fisk out of jail where he obviously belongs and into this mansion where Fisk clearly feels he belongs. But that's only one of the many problems that have arisen from this. Sure, the Armenian mob's down, but that motorcade was basically gunned down in the streets. And if that wasn't loud enough, there was, of course, immediate emergency medical response. So you see, what they were trying to do, when you're taking one of the most notorious criminals on the planet, white-collar criminal though he may be, out of prison where he belongs, a guy who's a menace to the city, is the face of evil. When you're transporting him to a mansion, you want to keep that fairly quiet. That's no longer an option. There's sirens everywhere. Lots of noise, gun smoke, all kinds of scary smells. If you're Matt Murdock and you can track down a laundromat because it smells extra piney, then think about what grenades and gunpowder, how you'd be taking in all of that, all those smells and sounds, and just reeling from it all, wondering what the hell just happened in my city. Matt, meanwhile, is recovering from his fights and realizes that his hearing has returned, and hears all these blaring sirens and klaxons and people running and screaming. So he goes and investigates, and he gets the news. The news that finally gives him a purpose, dark though it may be.
Goddamn Albanians killed everyone except Fisk.
Somebody said he's en route to the safe house.
It's a damn shit show. The FBI just let Wilson Fisk out of prison.
And there Matt was, thinking he just had the most successful night of his post-Defenders career. He'd caught the guys from the laundromat who had tried the night before to kidnap Rostam Kazemi. He'd won a fight, finally. His first fight, apparently, since that skyscraper explosion at the end of the Defenders. And suddenly word is out. You know, Matt likes to call himself the devil and dress appropriately. But as far as he's really concerned, same as the rest of New York, the actual Antichrist is Wilson Fisk, who has been released. And although many good law enforcement officers lost their lives in the process, they successfully got him out of jail, where he should have 5 consecutive life sentences or something. I'm not exactly sure how RICO works, but at minimum, he should have been in there for 20 plus years before even consideration of parole. And Matt Murdock, who is all about justice and hates Wilson Fisk with a burning passion, has found out that Fisk is out, he's free, and he's living in the lap of luxury. This is the very first news that Matt gets with his newly restored hearing. Now he's got a mission. And speaking of missions, This is episode 51. I didn't point this out last night, but thanks to all of you, we've passed 50 episodes on the Matt Sager podcast, and I think that's pretty damn cool. To my fellow New Yorkers, I would like to give this message tonight. Nothing lasts forever, even cold November rain, because that is what we're experiencing tonight. But thank you so much for taking me to episode 50 and beyond. Here's to the next 50. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Get in touch with me while you're hanging out over the weekend. You can email matt@mattsager.com, call 646-535-4788, or hit me up on Twitter. I'm @Matt Sager. On Instagram, I'm Real Matt Sager. And on Facebook, I'm The Matt Sager. And I've also got a voiceover page there, which is Matt Sager VO. This podcast's page is Matt Sager Podcast. And I've got more social media links, along with my voiceover reels, articles, blog posts, more episodes of this podcast, my contact info. You can find all that and more at mattsagervoiceover.com.